He was going through a lot to give me what I wanted. It was something I had not expected in this deal. I liked seeing Kieran care so much. It made me see the more human side of him than animal. I knew alphas were all business and no play, but Kieran seemed different somehow. My father gave me an apologetic look and shook his head. His eyes then met Kieran's. "No, I'm sorry." It hurt me that they were willing to be so far away from me, but on the other hand, I could understand where he was coming from. I knew what he wanted to stay. My aunts and uncles, cousins and grandparents were here. He didn't want to leave them, and it would be asking too much for them to leave with us. He sighed and rubbed his tired face. It was then that I had noticed how aged my father really was. Being in the pack all these years and wore him down, and now with the added stress of the past week on top of that, he looked like a walking zombie. This was too much on him. Maybe it would be better for him if he stayed. With me gone, he might finally have some peace. Maybe with some time, and when things settle down, he can come visit us in our new pack. It wasn't like I would never see him or my mom again. "If this is really what you want, then I guess I have to accept it," I said. "It is," he confirmed. "Both your mother and I are comfortable and happy here, and you deserve that as well." His face was saddened but serious. "If leaving here gives you happiness and comfort, then you should go. We will be there for you, no matter what you choose to do." I suppose my mom's words made him see things her way. Relief washed over me. It meant more than I could convey that he supported me in this decision to leave. It was the complete opposite of what he felt only half an hour ago. The peaceful silence we fell into grew. Mom and Dad smiled at each other, then at us. I knew what this meant for us, and it was going to be harder than I imagined it would. I felt a strange sense of comfort when Kieran reached under the table and placed his hand on top on mine. Our hands rested in my lap. "I guess I should start packing then," I said, breaking the silence. "Would you like some help?" Mom offered. "I would like that." It would be the last time she would get to spend any alone time together for a while. I needed this if I was going to be parted from her for who knows how long. Kieran gave me an encouraging nod. "I'll just run into town and fill up the tank for our journey back. It's going to take us at least 2 hours to get there, providing traffic is good." "Okay." I smiled weakly. I knew he was just trying to give me my space, and I appreciated it. This wouldn't exactly be easy. Saying goodbye never was. He released my hand and stood to his feet. My parents and I followed after him to the door. After he opened it, he turned back to me. "I'll be back in an hour. Will that be enough time?" I nodded. He returned it in reply and gave me and my parents one last glance before exiting through the door. He pulled it closed behind him. It was only a minute later I heard the start of the car engine, and he was gone. The emptiness I felt when I was alone crept back up inside me again. The same emptiness I had felt continuously until yesterday, until Kieran saved me, or is trying to anyway. Mom placed her hand on my shoulder and caused me to turn from the wooden door and face her, revealing the empty look in my eyes I know she wouldn't miss. Concern crossed her face, an expression I thought had become permanent until I started speaking again. It seems like I had a way of bringing out in her. She was worried for me. Dad wore a similar look. "Come on, honey. I'll find the suitcases," she said. I let her lead me up the stairs to my room. She left me by the door while she rummaged through my closet for the luggage. I took a slow look around my room, taking in everything that was familiar about it. I was creating a memory, one I would not forget. After a few minutes of banging around, she reached them and pulled them down from the top of the closet. She placed each one on my bed, side by side. I still had not moved from the spot she left me in. "Would you like me to call him back?" she asked softly. I knew who she meant. "No," I said. "I'll be fine." She watched me in silence for a moment before speaking back up again. "He seems to help you. You don't quite seem so empty when he's around," she noted. "I think he will be good for you." "We have something in common. He understands what I'm going through," I answered, trying not to wince at the painful memory of that day in the diner. I quickly pushed it from my mind. "I'll start over here," I said, walking towards my dresser and opening one of the drawers. I pulled out the first articles of clothing, my hands touched, and carried them over to my bed where the suitcases were. My mom didn't speak of Kieran anymore, seeing my reaction to my own words. When the tension dissipated, she walked to my closet and began pulling the clothes from my closet. In big bunches, she carried them to my bed until they were just one large heap beside the cases. Picking up one article at a time, she folded it and placed it neatly inside the suitcase. It looked much better than my suitcase I was working on, more organized. She had definitely honed the tidiness skill much better than I. She had had years of experience, though. I had never spent much time trying to master it as she had. We were nothing alike, my mother and I, nor was I like any of the other wolves in the pack. I was different. I didn't share their same ideas they had. Most of them took on the role of mothers and homemakers. None of them held any real positions in the pack, and that bothered me. Why it didn't bother anyone else was incomprehensible to me. I guess I was truly different than them. No doubt, that's why Daniel loved Jasmine so much. She was exactly what he looked for in a Luna. She was submissive, not at all outspoken. She would make the perfect little mate while he ran the pack. I always felt that running a pack was a two-person job, not one. I continued packing up the dresser until I could bear it no longer. I fell onto the bed in a slump. My mom jerked her head towards me before walking to end. I sat on and took the clean spot next to me. "What's wrong with me, Mom?" She wrapped her slender arm around my shoulders in an act of comfort and sighed wearily. "You just lost your mate, honey. There is nothing wrong with you. This is a completely natural reaction to that." I shook my head. "No, not that. I mean my whole life. Why am I so different from all the other female wolves?" Sympathy crossed over her features as she stared back at me. "There is nothing wrong with you, honey. You are your own person. You're special." Of course she would say that. She's my mother. "But look at you and look at me," I said. "You chose to stay home and care for your mate and raise a family just as most everyone chooses. In school, all the girls were so excited about finding their mates so that they would claim them and they could start bearing pups. I wasn't like that. I mean, sure, I wanted to find mine, but settling down was and is the last thing on my mind. I want some excitement and adventure, exactly what a real Luna should want, not just to bear the next alpha." I don't know if she could understand where I was coming from, but I needed someone to comfort me and tell me I was right to feel the way I did. I hadn't expressed my opinions much in the past, due to causing possible conflict in the pack. However, now that I was leaving them, there was nothing preventing me from being honest. "I know that you have never approved of the way things are in our pack, and I can understand that. You're just so much like your father. You're strong-willed, stubborn, and opinionated, the exact opposite of me. I made my choice. This is the life I wanted. But you are so much more than I am. You will make a difference. You are a leader." "Really?" I smiled, slightly cheered. Then I sighed at a sudden realization. "I don't feel like much of a leader right now. I feel weak, insignificant." She smiled warmly at me. "That's because you're broken. You're not yourself right now. It's going to take some time to get yourself back. But don't worry, you will." I suppose she had a point. Words struck something in my memory. A conversation that Kieran and I had earlier today. I am physically unable to be an alpha to my pack. I'm too weak right now to make any decisions. My beta is taking over for me until I am able to resume my position again, whenever that may be. I felt like I had a better understanding of what he felt now. Was his wolf missing too? Did he have no one to guide him? You can't lead a pack if your wolf is missing. That brought another question to mind. "Will I get her back?" I asked. "My wolf, I mean. She's been distant," she acknowledged. "Well, that's reasonable, all things considering. She's hurt too. The only difference between the two of you is that you have someone to console you, and she doesn't. She's grieving all alone." That is exactly what I would be doing if not for Kieran, grieving alone. "Oh," I mumbled, understanding washing over me. "Don't worry, sweetie." She patted my hand gently. "I think that with a little time and healing she'll be back. It's probably going to take her a little longer to heal than you, that's all." That made sense. Like Mom said, she is all alone. Even I couldn't help her. "Thanks, Mom," I smiled lightly. "I don't know how I'll survive without our talks when I'm gone." "You'll manage," she said confidently. "You'll have Kieran, and we can always talk on the phone, maybe even visit if it's possible." That comforted me some. "You can visit any time you like," I assured her. A tear escaped my eye when she wound her arms around me, giving me a tight hug. "I love you, Mom," I whispered. "I love you too, honey." Once she let me go, I stiffened. The atmosphere around us had changed, and the smell in the air was one I would know anywhere. I felt my wolf starting to stir. So she was there. She didn't try to resurface, but she wasn't remaining dormant either. My eyes flashed to the doorway where my dad stuck his head in as if testing the water. He looked almost remorseful. "Claire," he said as he entered, "someone is here to see you." I stood up abruptly from my bed and backed into the furthest corner of my room to get away from him. I just couldn't be near him. "No," I whispered. "I can't see him again. Send him away." But it was too late. He was already in my room, standing before me, next to my dad. I felt as if I was suffocating. The proximity between us was entirely too close. He was in my house. Why? My mom looked visibly upset at my dad. She glared at him and Daniel both before speaking. "Richard, how could you? You know what he put her through." That was the first time in my life I had ever saw her stand up to my father. She was always on his side. She believed in standing with your mate, not matter the circumstance. This was the exact opposite of that. My dad hung his head shamefully. "I'm sorry, I had to let him in." Daniel chose this time to speak up. He was looking directly at me. "Don't be mad at him. He had no choice except to let me in. It was orders." It was startling how much his voice and everything about him still affected me. It wasn't fair. When he chose Jasmine, that should have vanished. He had no right to be back here. The hurt I felt was still present, but unlike last time, there was also so anger mixed in with it. "Could I please speak to Claire alone, please?" It seemed like a request, but I could hear the order underlining his tone. They had to comply. They were still a part of this pack. They both nodded in submission, and my mother stood from the bed. My father waited for her to reach him, and they both exited together. I pressed myself even further into the wall when he took a step towards me. A whimper unintentionally escaped my throat. I could only imagine how weak I appeared to him. However, he didn't look much better. Behind his eyes, he was broken. Perhaps not as much as I was, but he didn't get out of this completely unscathed. He stopped mid-stride and held his hands up in front of him, allowing me to see he wouldn't come any further. If he did, I was sure to break all over again. "I'm just here to talk," he said. "I won't come any further if you would prefer it." I didn't speak. I was afraid to. My voice couldn't hold up speaking to him. Everything I buried deep inside of me would come spilling out with my words. Instead of answering, I just nodded, and he understood. He dropped his hands and sat on the edge of my bed facing me. My wolf was all ears. "I had to see you before you left. I need to explain myself before you decide on hating me forever." His words seemed sincere. My wolf believed him. "I want you to know, I never intended on rejecting you. The day I discovered you was the happiest day of my life. I was just confused. I needed to go home and think about what this meant. Even though I wanted you, I knew this would complicate things. I had to figure out how to sort everything out." He paused momentarily, as if thinking about that particular night, then continued. "I wanted you to come with me so nothing could change my mind about us. I knew that the longer you were with me, the more I would want you." His expression became despondent. "But you wouldn't come. You made me see that forcing you to do so would do more harm to us than good. So I went alone." His memory seemed to take him back there again. He stared intently at my peach-colored floral wallpaper and frowned. "I had planned on telling Jasmine about you that night after I got home. When I got there, she was waiting up for me with something of her own to confess. I didn't have to guess to know what it was. After she told me," he continued, "my mind went blank. Everything had changed. I could no longer tell her what I had planned to. Though I was elated by the news of our baby, I was also heartbroken for us because I knew what it meant." A tear slipped from eye at his confession. So he did want to be with me. He wasn't just leading me on. My body wanted to go to him, show him we still cared. However, I wouldn't allow it. It would hurt us both more in the end. The outcome was still the same. So many times I wanted to call you and deliver the news, but I couldn't. I knew you deserved better than that. I wanted the chance to explain in person. Then, as the days passed, I found myself making up excuses for not telling you. I soon realized I was only putting off the inevitable, and I had to tell you. A soft sob erupted from my throat, causing Daniel to look at me in guilt. The day you found out was the day I was planning to tell you. I had James watching you until you got off work, and then I was coming to get you. Unfortunately, fate intervened, taking me there a lot sooner than I expected. When James told me you were there with Kieran, I knew I was too late. The tears were pouring down my face now, making my vision become blurry. The soft sobs continued as he stood up and cautiously walked toward me again. This time I didn't stop him. "I'm so sorry, Claire." His hand touched my cheek once his was within distance of me. When he stopped in front of me, we were as close as the night he first recognized me as his mate. Blood rushed to the surface of my skin where he touched. It sent a fire down the right side of my face as his hand trailed down to my neck. He let it rest there. I tried to force myself to remain unresponsive to his touch, but my body was working against me. I reached my hand up and laid it on his. Electricity flowed between us. It surged through both of our arms like wildfire. I didn't stop the moan that came from my lips. My wolf was enjoying this closeness, but she still seemed cautious of him. She wasn't quite trusting of him yet. Perhaps she sensed something that I didn't. Daniel leaned his head into mine and hovered just above my lips. There were only mere centimeters separating us. He paused, his breath fanning over my face. To my surprise, my wolf was begging me to get away from him. She was hurting and I could feel it. We both knew that what was happening between Daniel and I couldn't ever go anywhere. So why didn't I listen to her? I didn't have time to think before his lips crashed down on mine. At first they were rough and hard, showing a sense of urgency, trying to get a reaction out of me, but when I didn't respond they became slow and soft. It was then that the shock wore off and I was finally able to grasp the situation. The same electricity that flowed through our veins before was now on our lips. Any voice of reasoning from my wolf was not heard due to Daniel's distraction. And soon she disappeared altogether. She intentionally shut herself off from me as a defense mechanism. No sooner than I gave in to the kiss did I realize what I was doing. I gasped and roughly pushed him away from me. I could see that he had not been expecting that. I shook my head. No. Even though my voice was barely over a whisper, he listened to me. His eyes became apologetic. "You're right, I'm sorry. I just had to know what it was like." This time I made my voice a little stronger. "You can't just reject me, then waltz into my house like you own the place, fill me with some sob story, then kiss me. It doesn't work like that. I understand your dilemma, I do, but that is no excuse. Jasmine is your mate now, not me." I was surprised that didn't hurt me to be so blunt about it. There was a twinge of sadness still in me, but with my wolf gone again, I was hollow once more. He looked away from me in shame, staring at the full open suitcases on my bed. "So I guess you're going then," he said. "Yes, I am, tonight." His head snapped to me. "So soon. There is no need to prolong the inevitable, is there? I need to pick up the pieces and move on with my life, and getting out of this town is the only way to do that." "I suppose," he admitted sadly. "But where will you go?" I took a moment for me to answer him, thinking of the best way to tell him. After a minute passed, I decided to be vague. "I have somewhere, don't worry." That's all the information I felt I owed him, not because I wanted to spare his feelings, but because it was really none of his business what I did anymore. He wanted to question me more. I could see that much, though he didn't. He must have come across the same realization that I had. It was not his business to know. At least we could both agree on that. "I should really finish packing," I said, breaking our silence. He nodded. "Yeah, I guess so. I'll leave you to it then." He smiled half-heartedly at me. It did not reach his eyes. With his hands pushed in his pockets, he backed away from me and turned toward the door. He didn't get far before he stopped in his tracks and looked at me once more. "It is asking too much to part on good terms. I couldn't bear it going through life knowing that you hate me." "I don't you," I said. "I forgave you the moment I woke up and realized what was going on. It wasn't exactly easy to hold a grudge against your mate. In fact, it was nearly impossible. That wasn't the reason that forgave him, though. I knew that if I didn't, I could never really let him go. He'll always be there in the back on my mind, haunting me, and I wouldn't allow that. Forgiveness means moving on, which is exactly what I had to do. Thank you, he said thoughtfully. Take care of yourself, will you? I will, I promised. You do the same. And then I said something I thought would never come from me. Good luck to you and Jasmine. And the scary thing was, I meant every word of it. Good luck to you as well, he replied. The half-hearted smile dropped from his face, letting the pain show though one last time. Goodbye, Claire. I returned the sorrowful expression and bid him the same. Goodbye, Daniel. He stared deep into my eyes for the briefest moment, and then, just like that, he was gone. Nothing left but the faint scent of his familiar smell and the quiet he left in his wake. Kieran placed the last of the bags in the back of his truck. My parents stood by the door, my father bracing her as she watched us with tear-filled eyes. It was a mix of both happy and sad tears. Although she was happy I was getting a fresh start, she was sad to see me go. It was the same for me. I had spent the last half hour, while Kieran was loading up, telling them goodbye. I hugged and kissed them at least a dozen times. I wasn't sure they were going to let me go. Are you ready? He asked, closing the tailgate and proceeding to my side of the vehicle. His hand rested on the door handle while he awaited my reply. He watched the brief exchange of emotions between me, my mom, and Dad. I smiled at them, and they returned it just as happily despite their tears. They were truly happy ones. I lifted my hand and gave them a last wave goodbye, with the slight movement of my hand while trying to convince myself this was the right thing to do. I knew that it was, but now, here in the moment, I found myself talking myself out of going, all for the sake of my parents. Leaving them was hard. Kieran placed his hand on my shoulder, which brought me from my reverie. I turned my head to face him and offered a faint smile. He returned it with an encouraging smile all of him own. I nodded to him. He pulled open the door and waited. Watching my parents as I got in, he closed the door after I was settled in the seat. The window was down, and the sun was beating down, hot on top of us. The heat had already settled in the cab of the truck, and suddenly the tank top and shorts I was wearing was not cool enough for this entirely hot day. Kieran rounded the vehicle to his side and was next to me in only a few short seconds. The engine roared to life, startling me with the loud sound. I flushed light pink when he grinned at my slight jump. He put the truck in reverse and slowly backed from my driveway, being cautious of his surroundings. Glancing out the side view mirror, I watched my home become smaller into the distance until it eventually disappeared altogether, my mom and dad waving the entire time. With my whole room packed into the back of the truck and my past behind me, I let out a sigh of relief. It felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. This would truly be a fresh start for me. Kieran and I took turns fiddling with the old antique radio inside the truck. I was surprised it picked up any radio stations at all, given its age. Out of the 3 radio stations it could pick up, 2 of them were older country stations, airing Johnny Cash, Hank William Jr., Willie Nelson, and others like them. I remember, while spending time on my grandparents' farm as a kid, listening to these kinds of stations while my grandpa worked on his vehicles. It wasn't my taste, but it did bring back some fond memories. I was happy to settle on the 90s and early 2000s station, the only other one we could get somewhat clearly. We had been on the road nearly 2 hours when we decided to stop for some food. My stomach couldn't have been happier. Eating had not exactly been on my list of things to do today, and I was now paying for it. When Kieran and I got out of the truck, I stuck out like a sore thumb. I wasn't used to bigger cities. I could count on one hand how many times I had been in one. The large buildings intimidated me. However, they didn't seem to bother my travel companion nearly as much. It was odd how much he seemed to fit in here. Sitting in the brightly lit restaurant, waiting on our food, I was finally able to study Kieran a little better than I had before. His thick dark hair swooshed down over the right side of his face, almost completely covering his eye. It added to his mysteriousness. His hazel brown eyes held a certain level of intensity that drew me in. It made me curious to learn more about him, and that frightened me. My eyes traveled downward and landed on his muscular chest and arms. There was some kind of tattoo hidden behind his short shirt sleeve over his left bicep. I quickly noted how he excelled in the looks and build department. I blushed when he caught me staring. "Does something interest you?" he asked teasingly. Actually, I was just noticing your tattoo." His eyes traveled down to where mine were studying the darkened skin, and he shifted in his seat awkwardly. He fumbled with his sleeve, trying to pull it over the mark, trying to cover it up. "It's nothing," he replied when he was satisfied with the shirt's coverage. His voice was a little hard. "Sorry, I didn't mean to pry, it just caught my attention," I explained. "No, it's not you. I'm sorry. It's just a touchy subject with me," he said, his voice returning to its normal tone. The reed-haired waitress returned with our food and sat the plates down in front of us before refilling our beverages. "Can I get you anything else?" she asked us, while stealing glances at Kieran. I tried not to giggle. She looked to be at least 16. She was human and wasn't hiding her infatuation for him well. When he sent her a friendly smile, she squealed and returned it, showing off her braces. I thought it was cute. "No, thank you," he answered her, trying not to laugh himself. "Okay, just let me know if you change your mind." She quickly disappeared from the table, Kieran chuckling after her. "It seems you have some allure around here," I smiled, amused. He took a bite of his burger and chewed for a few seconds, then swallowed. "What do you mean?" "Well, just now with the waitress and the hostess who seated us earlier," I explained. He mused. "I guess I do." I rolled my eyes at his casual response. Please, he would have to blind not to notice. I'm sure this happens often with him. How could it not? He was Kieran Knight after all. Watching him eat was increasing my appetite enormously, and I looked down at my pasta and wasted no time satisfying my hunger. It tasted just as good as it looked. I even burnt my tongue in my eagerness to fill my stomach. Kieran laughed at me and I glared. An hour later, it was starting to get dark out, so we quickly finished our food and left. He said we weren't far from his territory then. Just outside of the city, we turned down a paved back road and then turned down another that was graveled a while after that. At that point, he said we were only a few miles away. 20 minutes later, an insanely large house came into view. Probably the biggest one I had ever seen personally. It was as over-the-top and extravagant as the mansions I had seen on television. It was definitely beautiful. My mouth was gaping at its marvel. The tan 3-story house was breathtaking. The twilight sky setting in the background made the view picturesque. There were more windows on the mansion than I could count. A few pack members stood outside watching us as we pulled up, a few with puzzled expressions. There was a large garage off to the side that stood alone, separated from the house. When Kieran raised the garage doors with the click of a button on his keychain, I was even more in awe. There were a couple of sports cars, a motorcycle, and 3 solid black SUVs lined side by side. I looked like something the Secret Service would travel in. My mind was reeling with one very significant thing on it. Holy crap. He was rich. "This is your house?" I gasped. He chuckled as he parked the truck. "You seem surprised." I flabbergasted. "Are you serious? Look at the condition of this truck. What am I supposed to think?" He shrugged, killing the engine. I had to remain inconspicuous. He turned towards the other cars in the garage, then back to me. "Driving any of these would have drawn too much attention to me." "Yeah, someone might think you're a millionaire or something," I said, stating the obvious. "Actually, it's the pack house, not just mine," he corrected. I furrowed up my eyebrows in confusion. I had rarely heard that term, but I knew what it meant. I really didn't think anyone used those anymore. "Pack house? You mean everyone lives here together?" "More or less. There are some who prefer to live on their own. We have housing for them in a community in the wooded area behind the house. We're all very close in distance." This was something completely new to me. My territory didn't have a pack house. Our territory was solely made up of the Alpha's house and the pack members' houses that surrounded it. All business for the pack was handled in the home of the Alpha, seeing as it was the biggest and house on the land and could hold all of the pack members. "It must be nice to have so many people in one house, easy to communicate." "It is," he agreed. I keep my beta and third in command very close along with all the fighters. They occupy most of the rooms on the top floor along with me. We sat silently for a couple of minutes, both of us taking in what surrounded us until a very important question came to mind. So what's our story? He seemed confused by my question. What do you mean? Who am I to you? What are we telling people? I don't know what they know. He nodded in understanding. I called my beta after I left you to pack your things and told him everything. In our pack we have complete disclosure. I don't believe in keeping secrets. Secrets separate people, and if we are separated, we can't be a strong pack. Well, that made sense. I didn't know what that was like having someone being so open and honest all the time. I always felt like our pack had its secrets. Okay, to honesty then, I like that. To them you're my mate and that's all that matters. They are just happy that I have found someone after Jasmine. His voice sounded a little strained at her name. Talking about her still affected him, how thinking about Daniel still affected me. It was hard to think of one of them without thinking of the other. After all, she was my mate's mate. He cleared his throat and stepped from the vehicle. Come on, I'll introduce you to our pack. That single word clicked in me and I paused whilst opening the door. Our. That word had more meaning now than it ever did. He was right, this would be our pack now. Well, as soon as he takes it back again, it would. That was exciting for me and scary all the same time. I just hoped they will accept me. When he stopped in front of me with his hand extended, I broke from my thoughts. I stared down at his palm facing upward, waiting for me to take it. Unity, he said, answering an unspoken question. It's important to me and the pack. Right, I answered dumbly. I placed my hand in his large one, the heat enveloping it. While he seemed comfortable holding on to me, I was stiff. This was something new. He gave it a light squeeze and smiled teasingly. Loosen up, we'll both have to get used to this eventually. I smiled back, though it mostly forced and tried to take his advice. I loosened up. I let my shoulders fall into their usual place and let out a long breath. He's right. I can do this. I gripped his hand a little tighter and nodded to him. Okay, I'm ready. He seemed satisfied and pulled me along next to him, away from the garage. The large house came back into view and automatically I stiffened again. Anyone would feel nervous meeting another pack for the first time, especially one they would soon call their own. It's all right, trust me, he said. Again, I forced myself to relax. He's right. This is his pack, and he knows them much better than I do. A few of the members that were standing outside when we arrived were still there, only it seemed now they had a few more people join them. They all stared for a moment before dropping their heads in the presence of their alpha. Alpha, they each spoke as he walked past them. He nodded to each of them in return. They all seemed so formal, more so than my old pack did back home. They also seemed to have a much bigger population, if his house was any sort of clue. Hello, a few of them greeted me kindly. I was able to return the greeting to most of them just before Kieran opened the door and pulled me inside the house. The first room we entered was foyer with stairs leading up to another floor. Then to the right was an arched doorway that led a living room. It was crowded with people. It almost looked like a house party, except it was missing the beer and music. There had to have been at least 30 people in the main room, making the large space look much smaller than what it really was. If there were this many people in this room, I could only imagine how many the other rooms held. No one had noticed that we had entered the room yet. How many people are in your pack exactly? I asked in amazement. 215, he replied easily. The number seemed to just roll off his tongue. My eyes widened in surprise. That's almost double what my previous pack was. We are one of the biggest ones in the country. The last time I checked, we were tired for number 3. I huffed out in a breath of air in disbelief. And this is the pack I'm supposed to help Kieran run? Is he crazy? This is a huge job. I'm gonna need you to trust me again, he smiled. I think he liked seeing me panic more than he let on. The amusement on his face was very blatantly obvious. Once he turned from me, his expression turned more businesslike. He cleared his throat rather loudly to gain everyone's attention. I was not prepared to meet the wondering eyes of the pack members that stared back at me. Alpha, someone said, causing them all to bow in respect. When they raised their heads again, every single eye was on me. I could feel the sweat forming between mine and Kieran's hands from the nervousness I felt. Kieran shot me a "remember what I told you" look, but that seemed hard to do right now. I swallowed. As you all know, I have been away for a while. I'm sure Wyatt has filled everyone in on the reason why. Just then a single person emerged from a connecting room and bowed his head in respect of Kieran. Several people followed a short distance behind him. "Wyatt," Kieran acknowledged. He looked between Kieran and me quickly, and then smiled at him in a way that it seemed to convey some sort of inside joke between them. "Claire," he said, bowing again. I bowed back in return. "I won't explain everything to you again unnecessarily, but what you have heard is true," he continued, then squeezed my hand and looked at me. "This is Claire. She is to be my mate and your Luna by the next full moon." I tensed at his words. The next full moon? We hadn't discussed our mating date yet. Wasn't I supposed to be a part of that decision? I shot him a disgruntled look. I'll wait until after this is over before I question him about that. "I hope you will all give her a warm welcome to our pack. I want her to feel at home here," he finished. He shot me a breathtaking smile that surely would have melted me like butter if I wasn't still hurting due to recent events. There were murmurs of kind words and delighted looks of the faces of the pack. Almost immediately, people were lining up to greet me. They had obeyed Kieran's request with issue. None of them seemed forced to be polite. It honestly felt like they wanted to, because I meant something to Kieran. "It's nice to meet you, Claire," an older woman said, shaking my hand. "I'm Maggie, Kieran's aunt. It's nice to finally put a face with the name." "It's a pleasure to meet you too," I replied. She smiled fondly at Kieran. "She's so pretty, Ken. You picked a good one." "Ken?" I looked at him questioningly. Was that a nickname or something? He quickly brushed it off and shook the next person's hand in line behind her. "And I'm Roger, Kieran's uncle," a man said, causing me to turn my attention to the person behind her. "Hi," I said. It went on like that for the next hour at least. I met everyone, friends, family, the beta, the third in command, and every other person in the pack. By the time it was over, I felt exhausted. It had truly been a very long day, emotionally and physically. I was yawning before Kieran even finished the house tour that followed after the meeting. We had finished the bottom level of the house when I requested to put the rest off until tomorrow. When we reached the third level, he paused at the top of the stairs and turned to me. "There was a little problem with getting a room together for you at last minute, so you'll have to share mine tonight. I'll take the fold-out couch. You can have the bed." "That's not necessary. I can take the couch." He frowned. "What kind mate would I be to let you do that? I'll taking the couch." He didn't leave much room for argument. His eyes dared me to go against him. "Okay," I sighed. "Arguing would get us nowhere. Besides, it's only temporary. If you insist." He nodded and continued to lead the way to his room. It was during our walk that I had time to think about the events of tonight. That's when I remembered something. "Why didn't you tell me that you picked out a date for our mating?" He shrugged. "I really didn't think you'd mind. I thought that it would be best to go ahead with it due to the circumstances." "It's not that. I just thought you'd tell me before announcing it to everyone." There was a little irritancy in my voice that couldn't be helped. His expression was apologetic. "It's an old habit. I'm just used to making decisions on my own." "That's understandable." The slight annoyance I had over the subject vanished and I nodded. "Well, I'm here now. You don't have to do everything on your own anymore." "I'm glad," he said honestly. "I've been doing things on my own for so long, I don't know how to let someone help me, but I'd like to try." Confusion crossed me again. "What about your parents? Where are they?" "I didn't recall seeing them tonight," he grimaced. "It's too late to get into that tonight. Maybe some other time." I guess that was a touchy subject too. He finally came to a stop at a set of white double doors at the end of the hallway. I already knew before he opened the door this was the master bedroom. It was confirmed with the opening of the doors. The king-size bed in the middle of the room was neatly made, with carefully organized pillows at the top. The blue carpet matched the bedspread perfectly. There was a two-per couch at the end of the bed with a pin strip pattern. That must have been the fold-out sofa Kieran referred to earlier. Besides the bed, freakishly large closet, TV and dresser, there was nothing else in the bedroom. It was certainly roomy. There was another door along the same wall as the closet that I could clearly see led to a master bath. The pristine bathroom was perfectly visible from here. I don't know what I would do if I had a bathroom this big at home. Live in it, maybe? Make yourself at home. I'll just go down and have someone help bring up your bags. He quickly disappeared from the room, leaving me to myself and the beauty of the room. My eyes wandered back to the bed, and I silently wondered if the bed was as comfortable as it looked. It seemed like one of those beds you could just sink into and never get up from. I decided to test it out. As soon as my body lay across the bed, I let out a contented sigh. The mattress formed to my curves and offered comfort to every inch of my body. Yes, it was as comfy as it looked, and as predicted, I never wanted to get up. Unfortunately, the sound of someone shuffling into the room didn't make that possible. I quickly sat up to see the person that had invited themselves in. I felt as surprised as the chestnut-haired young girl that was standing at the door, awkwardly. "Oops, I'm sorry. I was looking for my brother," she apologized. I raised an eyebrow at her. "Kieran, I didn't know he had a sister. Why didn't he mention it to me? I thought I had met all of his family tonight." "Yeah," she nodded. "I just got back from my friend's house. Can you let him know that Keely made it back home okay? I'm just going to go to bed." "Sure," I smiled. "I'm Claire, by the way." I was a bit worried by the excitement that crossed her face at the mention of my name. She decided to enter further into the room and sat next to me on the bed. "You're Claire," she said. "Of course you are. I feel so dumb. I was hoping I'd get to meet you soon. I just didn't think it would be this soon, you know? I thought my brother might keep you to himself for a while, if you know what I mean." Who wouldn't know what she means? We both blushed at her comment. "How old are you exactly?" I giggled. 15, she answered. "I might not be an adult yet, but I know how mates work." True mates, maybe, but Kieran and I weren't exactly the traditional type. Maybe she didn't understand the distinction. "I'm glad he finally found someone. Everyone has been worried about him since our parents, you know," she said. I shook my head. "Your parents?" "Yeah, he's been kind of, how should I put it?" she thought to herself. "He's been kind of strict, firm, serious, nothing but pack business. Well, until a month ago, that is. I didn't know. It's probably a touchy subject with him still. He's really had to grow up fast," she explained. "I started to feel really bad for him. I wish I knew more about him and his life. He is such a mystery to me, so hidden." "Keely, what are doing in here?" Kieran asked as soon as he stepped in the room. "Kidnapping your mate," she answered sarcastically with the roll of her eyes. "What does it look like I'm doing?" "You should go to your room. It's getting late and you have school tomorrow," he said with parental authority lacing his tone. She sighed, not hiding her annoyance at her brother, and stood up. "Fine, I was going there anyway." She turned to me as Kieran sat some of my bags at the door and smiled. "Good night, Claire." "Good night," I replied. She continued to the door before shooting her brother an annoyed look and disappeared. I wanted to laugh, but Kieran did not look like he was in the mood for joking around at the moment. "The rest of your stuff is in the room next door. I'll have someone get it ready for you tomorrow." "Okay," I yawned. "It's really a shame I have to say goodbye to this bed so soon. I wonder if Kieran might let me have it. Wishful thinking, I suppose." I got ready for bed as quickly as I could. I was already missing the bed's comfort, and I need some much-needed sleep. Kieran already had his bed ready by the time I was out of the bathroom and back in the bedroom. He laid down as soon as I reached the bed. We both bid each other good night. I couldn't help but want to question him about his family, but I didn't know if he really considered it any of my business or not. He knew so much about me, and I still knew so little about him. I waited until we were both comfortable in the bed before I switched off the lamp next to me. The darkness seemed to bring a sense of quiet along with it. How I desperately wanted to break it. His breathing was quiet, controlled. Was he already asleep? "Kieran?" "Tomorrow." He answered automatically, as if he had been expecting my question. Maybe I was just that transparent. I let the silence be my reply. I wouldn't press him on it if he wasn't ready to tell me. I looked at the clock and debated calling my parents to let them know I made it, but it was too late. I knew they would already be in bed. I guess it will just have to wait until tomorrow. I yawned, another wave of drowsiness washing over me. My mind was telling me to rest. There would be more time for questions later. I didn't try to fight the sleep that was invading my every thought. Instead, I embraced it and gave in to darkness that closed in on me. Very soon, I was out of it, and falling into a dreamless state of sleep, eager to find out what the next day had in store for me and Kieran. When the morning came, I forgot where I was. Nothing looked familiar to me, and it wasn't until my consciousness fully returned that the events of yesterday started flooding back into my mind. Left home, new pack, slept in Kieran's room. Kieran. He wasn't there. The room was empty, and the couch that served as Kieran's bed the night before was made up and utterly untouched. It was as if he hadn't even spent the night there at all. I had to think back to yesterday, just to be sure I hadn't imagined him being there. I glanced at the clock on the bedside table and yawned. 9:30 a.m., it read. It wasn't much different than time I normally woke up in the mornings at home. I slid myself to the side of the bed and pushed myself off with ease. My feet met the blue carpet I had admired the night before. I quickly made my way to the bathroom to use it, before my bladder busted, then attempted to clean myself up in the mirror before anyone caught sight of my ghastly appearance. My hair was in every direction on top of my head, and my makeup looked worse than the time I'd tried to apply it at the age of 5 years old. I snuck into my mom's makeup bag while she was asleep one morning. It was not pretty. I soon realized throughout my morning routine I hadn't unpacked my toothbrush yet and went back to the bedroom to dig through one of my suitcases to find it. After I did, I was surprised to see Keely standing in my doorway with a bright smile on her innocent face. "Sorry, I didn't mean to startle you. I just came to see if you were up yet." I giggled. "It's fine. I'm surprised to see you're still here. Don't you have school today?" She shrugged. "School doesn't take up until 10 o'clock on the territory." "That must be nice. I never had that luxury when I was in high school." Curiosity swept across her features. "Where did you go to school?" "On the Dark Shadow territory. Our school wasn't very big. The college campus in town was much bigger," I explained. "I've never heard of it," she shrugged. "Not many people have." Her expression quickly became bored when her phone buzzed in her pocket and she read whatever information it held. She let out a low groan. "What's wrong?" I asked. "School," she sighed. "I guess I really should go." Her annoyed expression was humorous. It wasn't so long ago that I was her shoes dreading the same thing. However, I was starting to miss my college courses already. I wonder if they have any classes here I could take. "I guess I'll see you later," she mumbled, turning from the door, then pausing in the hallway just outside it. She glanced back at me as if she just remembered something. "Oh, and Kieran told me to let you know he's waiting for you downstairs in the kitchen." I nodded and thanked her before heading back towards the bathroom with my toothbrush in hand. After I finished brushing my teeth, I tried to comb down the mess on top of my head, also known as my hair, then got dressed. I put on the first things my hands touched, not bothering to sort through my other bags. Kieran was already waiting for me, so I didn't want to take up any unnecessary time. Coming to the bottom step of the stairs, I tried to remember which way the kitchen was in this enormous house. It was only last night Kieran showed me the way, but now, even in my more conscious state, I just couldn't remember. I must have been really tired last night. Looking to my left, then looking to my right, I decided to go to my right, the exact opposite way we went last night to meet the pack. It just seemed logical that the kitchen would be on the other side of the house. If it wasn't, then what was? When I passed by a few more familiar doors, I knew that I was right. I remember passing by Kieran's spacious office on the way to it. I took a moment to stop and look in, now that I was able to actually study it better. The dark wood interior gave it a look of importance and elegance. A few pictures hung on the walls of people I didn't know, and a large bookshelf covered the most north wall. It was rather large. I imagined that it held lots of imperative information on the pack, among other things. My eyes wandered over the rest of the room and landed on the desk along the back wall. There were multiple documents scattered messily across it, along with a telephone and more books. Someone had been working at it recently. "Enjoying the general splendor, are we?" a voice said behind me. It gave me a startle, causing me to jump back in surprise and bump into the person who had spoken. I blushed when I turned around. I immediately recognized the person as Wyatt, Kieran's beta. He held a humorous smile as he tried to steady me. His blue eyes watched me with amusement. He was quite handsome, if I was being honest. That seemed to run in the pack here. I noticed that last night when meeting everyone. He, Dorian, Leland, and Kieran stood out among them all. "I'm so sorry. You startled me." My hand was placed over my heart as I spoke. "Yes, I'm quite stealthy," he chuckled. "One of my many talents." I turned my attention back to the office. I was touring the house. The office interested me. He stepped around me and held his arm open through the doorway that I was still standing in. "Would you like to come in?" "I'd like to, but I think Kieran is waiting for me. Maybe later?" I asked, hopeful. "Of course," he said. "And he's in the kitchen if you're looking for him." To my relief, he pointed the way I was supposed to go, so I wasn't completely on my own. "Thanks," I smiled. I followed his directions, and it turned out I wasn't that far away from it after all. By staying on the path Wyatt put me on, it brought me directly to it. The sight I saw upon entering the kitchen was a hilarious one. Kieran was standing over the stove with a smoking pan in one hand and a spatula in the other. He looked utterly irritated. It's a wonder that he hadn't burnt the house down, or at least set off the smoke detectors. When a giggle escaped my lips, it quickly drew his attention and he froze. "Need some help?" I asked. A low growl escaped his lips. I almost didn't hear it. "I was trying to cook," he said, dropping the burnt pan into the sink. He filled it with water, causing smoke to fill the air. He coughed a little. Taking a seat on one of the stools at the counter, I watched him with amusement. "I can see that. What happened?" He shrugged and leaned on his hands on the counter between us. I turned away for just a minute to check my phone, and the next thing I knew, the smoke was everywhere. I giggle again. "You're not supposed to leave anything on the stove unattended. Why were you cooking anyway? Miss breakfast with everyone else?" I guessed. "Actually, I was making it for you," he grumbled. My laughter quickly halted, and I internally felt bad for teasing him. "He did all of this for me?" "Oh," I said. "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to," he shrugged. "I just want you to feel at home. So that is what this is about." "At home," I began. "I rarely ate breakfast. I was usually too busy." His face became grim. "Yeah, I know that feeling." We were both silent for a moment, Kieran seeming to be in thought. I poked my fingertip on the prongs of the fork in front of me until he decided to speak again. "I thought I'd take you out to show you the rest of the territory today. It's been a while since I have been out there too, so I thought it would be good if we did that together." "Sure," I said, but that soon brought up a reminder. "You've deserted your alpha duties for a while now, huh?" He nodded, but didn't say much. "Do you think you're ready to take your place back yet?" I asked curiously. "Very soon," he nodded. "I really need to get back in touch with the pack first. That being the reason for today," I stated in understanding. "Yeah." I jumped up from my seat with much enthusiasm and grinned. If he was willing to show me around and include me in the business of the pack, then I would surely take it. I was eager to get to know everyone better, and this would be the best way. "Okay, great. Let's go." "Wait," he said, holding up his hand to stop me from getting too excited. "I kind of wanted to talk to you about something first." His voice seemed tense, which, in turn, made me become a little wary of his next words. I didn't like the tense moments with him as much as the others. He seemed so serious and alpha-like. I guess that's something I would have to get used to, though, because that's exactly what he was, an alpha. I moved back into the seat behind me I had previously been sitting in and slumped, waiting for him to continue. "I wanted to discuss the terms of our mating," he began while watching me closely. He seemed to be uncertain how to continue. When I nodded, he went on. "As you know, there are several parts to mating that we will have to go through to become completely mated." "Yes," I replied, unsure of where he was going with this. "There is one in particular I wanted to speak with you about." He still hadn't relaxed yet, and his eyes grew more intense. I thought we should go through phase 1 as soon as possible, if that's all right with you. Phase 1? I asked myself. The marking? Most mates do it as soon as they meet each other for the first time, but seeing as our circumstances were a little different, that didn't happen, he explained. Oh. I was a little taken aback by his request. I don't know why, though. It wasn't illogical. He was completely right. I guess I should have expected it. When? I asked. Soon, he said. Do you think that's something you will be okay with? When I didn't answer, thinking it over, he continued. It will help with the dreams. That got me attention. I didn't mask the confusion I felt. Dreams? I guess you haven't started having them yet. It's still too soon for it. You should expect them, though. They can be pretty intense. Just when you think you are getting better, they break you all over again. You have them? I asked. An unknown emotion passed through his eyes before he answered. Not so much anymore. They only lasted for a couple of weeks. They started just a week after my rejection, and my last one was the day I met you in the diner, more than a week ago. I felt myself overcome with worry. Then that means mine would start any day now. How could I handle that kind of pain again? This time I don't have my parents to help me through it. I glanced at the floor for a moment, thinking it over, then back up to Kieran. I agree. We should do the marking claim soon. How does now work? I was surprised by his sudden chuckle. His hands came up in front of him, like he was holding me back from attacking him. Hold on. I meant by the next scheduled pack meeting in a few days. I thought you'd want to prepare yourself first. Mentally, I blinked. Why? He seemed taken aback by my question and dropped his hands. He didn't seem so humored now. His face was serious. Because a lot goes into the claim. We both have to want and accept it. It's not just a mark. It's us letting our bodies know we want each other as mates. We are bringing our souls together as soulmates and starting a bond for them to grow on, one that can only be completed by our mating. It will change both of us. I felt dumb. I should have known that. My mom only ever explained that being marked was so that other wolves would know you belonged to someone. I guess it's different for non-mates. Oh, no one ever really explained that part to me. I felt a string of emotions from uncertainty to nervousness, and finally acceptance. Sure, the claim might change us both, but I really didn't see any way around it, and it would have to happen sooner or later anyway. We might as well get ready for it. Now that you know, are you ready? He asked. It's not exactly a deal breaker, I stated softly. I don't see why it wouldn't be. I was more nervous than before, but it didn't change my decision on the matter. I would still go through with it. I gave him my word, and I had no intention of breaking it. Good, he nodded, seeming pleased with that. I'm glad we got that cleared up. His posture instantly became more relaxed, and he smiled. So, seeing as I botched breakfast, what do you say to us getting out of here? I giggled lightly and returned his smile. Sounds good. I'd hate to choke to death on smoke from your cooking attempt. He ruffled my hair lightly on our way out the door, causing my hard work on it this morning to go to waste. Payback sucks. The pack territory was even bigger than I had imagined. What Kieran had referred to as a small housing community for the pack in the woods was no small community at all. It was quite large, almost the size of our pack village, just slightly smaller. Kieran's pack still outnumbered them by double nonetheless. The houses were nice. The community was a close-knit neighborhood. Thought the houses were on the smaller side, they made up for it in beauty. Side by side, the houses were lined up next to each other. They were not very far apart. Everything was relatively close to each other. Kids played outside while several adults and wolves roamed the land. Most of them seemed to just be keeping an eye on things. Some of the familiar faces I had met last night stared back at me with smiles, all of them bowing their heads in respect. It surprised me that they were already treating me like Kieran's mate, even when we had not made a step in the mating direction yet. Welcome back to the territory, Alpha, one of the men said. Yes, it's been too long, another person beside him who I immediately recognized as Leland. He was one of the fighters in the pack. I remembered him speaking to me last night. Leland, Kieran acknowledged him formally. I was still adjusting to the formalities in the pack and adjusting to my future mate's more reserved and business side. It seemed Kieran had many different sides to him. "What's the latest news on the new Dawn pack?" he asked Leland, who was just acknowledging me next to Kieran. His eyes flashed back to Kieran. "We're still working out the date of their visit. Alpha Clint has been visiting with some of the other surrounding packs to gain more support on dealing with the rogue invasion that happened last week and has just gotten back to his territory. He thinks next week will be a good time to visit if that works for us." "What does Wyatt think?" Kieran asked. "He agreed on Saturday," he answered him. "Then I trust his decision. But one more attack, then we'll be forced to take action ourselves with or without New Dawn's help." He nodded before his eyes flashed to something or someone behind us. We didn't have to look to see who it was. His scent hit us, revealing him. It was Wyatt. "I take it Leland has just filled you in on everything?" he asked, coming to a stop in the space between Kieran and the person of subject. "He did," Kieran confirmed. "I trust that you'll continue to see everything through." Wyatt nodded, then flashed a knowing smile between the two of us. "I take it you'll be back to business soon?" I blushed at the insulation. "I plan to," he confirmed with a grin all of his own. It was clear these two were pretty close friends and shared some kind of levity between them. I had a strong suspicion that maybe they had already talked about mine and Kieran's mating. I'm not so sure how I felt about that, even if they were friends. Though I guess I would also want my best friend's opinion on a decision this big as well. Too bad my best friend was in another pack, and the likelihood of me seeing her again was slim. I hadn't even seen her since before everything went down with Daniel. I had shut her out like I had done everyone else when I was hurt. I suppose our distance was entirely my fault. I tried not to dwell too much on that fact. Maybe I'll try to call Jennifer soon and explain everything if she didn't already know. Word tends to spread like wildfire in our pack. "Come on," Kieran said, gently tugging on my hand and breaking me from my thoughts. "I'll show the rest of the land." I blushed when I realized I had spaced out for a few seconds. I hope I didn't seem rude. Kieran showed me many more important places on the land, one of them being the pack borders, which happened to meet the Red Moon Pack, Alpha Sawyer's territory. I was still trying to keep up with the different alphas he had mentioned. It was a lot to remember. I never had any reason to know them before, but as future Luna, it was my job to know who they were now. I did learn that the New Dawn pack was the pack that was tied in third with our pack, the Perilous pack, in size. Well, they were until recently anyway. I was the one pack member that put them officially at number 3. I don't know how long that will last, though. I also learned that Red Moon was ranked number 2 in size, and the Night Seekers were number 1. We came to a stop at one of my favorite places by far, the lake. "Feeling overwhelmed yet?" he asked after explaining the packs. "Maybe a little," I replied honestly, "but this is all still so new to me. With some time, I know I'll adjust." He offered a faint smile. "I'm glad you feel that way," he said. "I know this is a lot to take in. I'm not trying to rush you or anything, even if it seems that way. I'm just trying to educate you and prepare you for your position." I believed him. "I know," I smiled, "and I'm your sponge, absorbing it all." He chuckled at the analogy and turned back to the sparkling water. For a moment he seemed peaceful and perfectly at ease. I guess you could say it was catching because I was starting to feel the exact same way. We were silent for a few minutes, enjoying the warmth and calm until the clearing of his throat broke it. He turned back to me. "I have a couple more places to show you and people I want you to meet, and then I promise to relieve you for the day." I nodded. "Okay." That sounded great to me. I still needed to call my parents and Jennifer anyway. Just like he promised, after everything was done, I was on my own. He spent the remainder of the evening locked up in his office, the one I spotted this morning, probably getting caught back up on all things pack-related. I took the time to go on my own tour of the house. I like to explore. On my way to the library, I passed by a door that Kieran had yet to let me see behind, and curiosity swept over me. After getting over my fear of a Beauty and the Beast reenactment, I decided to see for myself what was there. Kieran hadn't warned away from any areas, so I assumed it was fine to proceed. When I opened the door, I quickly found that there was a pair of steps behind it that led downward into a basement of some sort. I soon found myself following them until I reached the bottom. I was surprised to find an infirmary down below. It very much resembled a local clinic in my town. The infirmary at my old pack was nowhere this large in size. This made up for it 3 times. I imagine all the excess beds were for when battles occurred to bring in all the injured wolves. They must have had much conflict in the past if they had their own hospital in the basement. What's more, it didn't even seem like a basement. It looked exactly like a well-kept hospital. I was impressed. "Are you lost?" Man asked that I hadn't even noticed in the room. My head snapped in the direction of the voice when my eyes settled on an older male sitting at a desk filling out some papers. He looked to be in his mid to late 40s, with light brown hair that showed some light streaks of gray in it. His eyes were warm and inviting. "Sorry, I didn't mean to intrude. I was curious what was down here," I explained. He grinned and stood up from the desk in the corner and proceeded my way. When he reached me, he motioned to everything on the floor. "Welcome to the infirmary. I'm Heath, the pack doctor. Would you like for me to show you around?" "Yes," I said. I remember meeting him last night, but I guess he figured I wouldn't remember with all the other faces I met. I followed beside him as he traveled through the room. "Well, as you know, this is where all healthy and injured wolves come for medical treatment. I specialize in everything from preventative medicines to healing the dying. I don't stay very busy, but when I am, it's usually bad." "Bad?" I asked. "Yes, the last time every bed in here was full was when the late Alpha and Luna were killed. It was the bloodiest pack battle I can remember." I swallowed. "So that's what happened to Kieran's parents. They were murdered. How many members were lost?" I asked. 42 of us, but we practically annulated what was left of the underground pack. Only a few of them escaped with their lives." "What caused the fight?" Dr. Heath seemed apprehensive to answer any more questions. "Hasn't Kieran filled you in on any of this yet?" "No," I replied, "but we haven't had much time for talking. I only got here yesterday." I hoped that was convincing enough for him. Besides, I didn't lie. That was true. He seemed to think over my words for a minute before becoming understanding. "Yes, of course." He was silent for a moment for continuing. "The fight was started because Alpha Logan of the underground pack lost his mate. One of his wolves went rogue in a thirst for power and went for the kill when he was at his most vulnerable and took over the underground's pack." I stared at Heath in shock, absorbing everything he told me. We had never encountered anything to this magnitude in my old pack. At most, we had a couple of trespassers trying to cause trouble, but they never killed anyone, nor did anyone in our pack turn against each other. Axel, the rogue, killed Logan's mate first, then the Alpha himself. "He ran the pack into the ground," he continued. "He had so many wolves scared to leave the pack that he killed anyone who tried. It wasn't until a bunch of packs band together and took him and his pack of rogues down that they were freed. Unfortunately, though, our Alpha and Luna were killed in the process. The rogues were a lot tougher than we thought, and there were so many of them." Poor Kieran. Heath stopped and gave me a minute to process everything, then started back. "Axel thought that by killing the Luna and Alpha of our pack, we would naturally bow down to him and accept him as our Alpha, just as what he had done to the underground pack. If there had been no heir to the werewolf line, then we would have had no choice, just like them. Werewolf law states that whoever kills an Alpha and sole heir to the werewolf line could become Alpha. He didn't realize until too late that Alpha Jonathan had a son." "Kieran," I whispered. Heath nodded. "Yes, the pack was so grief-stricken that it caused us to have so many fatalities. However, even in our loss, our pack numbers still outweighed the underground pack, and we were able to take them down before any more of our pack got wiped out." "Wow," I breathed. I was not expecting that. Poor Kieran. Then suddenly a question came to mind. "You said a few of the underground pack members survived?" He frowned at my question and looked away despairingly. "Yes, Axel and his closest rogues." A gasp quickly escaped my lips. "What? He's still alive?" "For now," he answered. He has kept himself well hidden for the past couple of years, but we will find him. So no one has any idea on his whereabouts? No suspicion on what his plans are? No, but he is most likely somewhere building up an army, planning his next attack. Something suddenly came to mind. The rogues, the ones Wyatt, Kieran, and Leland were talking earlier, could that be Axel's guys? I shivered at that thought. I hope not. The sound of someone's footsteps approaching us caused both of us to become silent. When the person came into sight, he smiled. "Kara, just on time," he said, taping his watch. The girl smiled and rubbed her stomach as she neared the bottom of the steps. He then frowned at her. "You're nearly at the end of your pregnancy. I really wish you would start taking the elevator now." She gave a short laugh. "You know how I love to walk." "Yes, but you're nearly due. If I didn't know any better, I'd say you were trying to hurry the twins along," he chuckled. Feeling like I was invading their privacy, decided to take my leave and left him to his patient. So many things were still on my mind, and I had a dozen questions for Kieran. If I ever got the nerve up to ask them, that is. I didn't want to pry. A few minutes later, I found myself wandering back into the kitchen after realizing it was close to dinner time, and I had yet to eat anything today. I guess I just forgot what, with being so busy and all. There were a few people sitting around the room, all of them giving me friendly expressions and making small talk. I truly appreciated their kindness and not making feel like an outcast. Not feeling like cooking, I grabbed an apple from the bowl on the counter and took a seat next to a pretty raven-haired girl who was working on something that looked like college homework while munching on a bag of chips. I remembered her face from last night, but for the life of me couldn't remember her name. She smiled at me when she caught me looking at her, then I felt bad for starring. "Hi, Claire," she said, making me feel even worse for not remembering her name. "I'm Lara, remember?" I felt relief at the mention of her name. I nodded. "Right, of course. How are you?" I asked. She looked down at her textbook and groaned. "I've been better. This psychology homework is really kicking my butt." I laughed. "Yes, I remember it very well." Her face lit up at my confession. "You took psychology too?" "Yeah, last semester," I replied. "Finally, someone understands my frustration." She threw her hands up in the air dramatically. I laughed again. She popped another chip into her mouth when someone else entered the kitchen and began pulling pots and pan out of a cabinet and placing them on the stove. "I didn't know you were on kitchen duty tonight." "Yeah," Lara said, speaking to her older twin. The resemblance between them was uncanny. In 20 more years, Lara would look just like her. "Don't worry about me. You need to finish your homework," the woman said to Lara. "Geez, Mom, I've been at it for the past hour. I'm entitled to a break," she complained. "You treat me like I'm still a child." So that's why they looked so much alike, of course. That's her mom. The woman then looked at me and smiled kindly. "Hi, Claire. I don't know if you remember me or not, but I'm Margaret." I think I vaguely did. "I remember," I told her with a smile. "How do you like the pack so far?" she asked while dragging some ingredients from the fridge. The countertop quickly piled up in front of her with food. "I love it," I said honestly. "Everyone has been so welcoming and polite." "Have you made any friends yet?" She sounded just like an overly concerned parent questioning their child on the first day of a new school. It felt ice to know someone cared so much about me already. Well, does Keely count? She is really the only one I've spoken to more than once. She's a real sweetheart, isn't she?" Margaret said, then added with a laugh, "And drives her brother crazy, that one." "She does," I agreed. Margaret, Lana and I continued to chat for a while until I felt like I was distracting them from their work and left. An hour later, I found myself upstairs in Kieran's room while waiting for dinner to be finished. The apple I ate did very little to fill me. I actually had an appetite today and craved something more. Hopefully dinner would be less awkward than yesterday, since almost everyone knew me a little better now. I rang my mom and talked to her for a half an hour about what the pack was like and how much I liked it. I told her everything apart from the pack history I learned of today, which I didn't think was my place to share. I felt a little emotional talking to her after realizing how much I missed her and my dad. She was just as saddened as I was. After the call ended, I had started to call Jennifer when a very tired-looking Kieran entered the room. Whatever he and Wyatt spent the afternoon dealing with in the office must have taken a toll on him. He looked bushed. He glanced at me with an apologetic expression when he saw me sitting on his bed. "I'm sorry. Your room's not ready yet. I've been so preoccupied today, I forgot to put someone the project." Actually, I had been thinking about that today. I was kind of relieved it wasn't ready yet. About that, I started. I was thinking that maybe I would do it myself. I can pick out my own stuff and fix it up. He seemed surprised. Really? Really? I'm used to doing things for myself anyway. He seemed to think about for a moment and nodded. Okay, but you really don't have to go to very much trouble over it. You won't be in there for long anyway. He trailed off. That's right, I won't be. I'll be in here, with him, in his bed, together. I suppressed a shiver that went down my spine at that thought. It was the good kind, and that worried me. Yes, he was incredibly good-looking, but I shouldn't be having thoughts like that about him, at least not this soon. I think I can do it, I said confidently. Leave it to me. That seemed to satisfy him, and he agreed before disappearing into the bathroom for the next half hour while he showered. I didn't have much luck getting in touch with Jennifer and decided on a nap after I left her a voicemail. What I didn't expect when I woke up next was to see Kieran standing at his closet in nothing but a towel and water droplets running down his chest. I thought that he would have been dressed and ready by the time I woke up. I guess I just wasn't that fortunate. This is not good for me. I tried my best not to stare at him when he realized I had woken up. I didn't want to be caught gawking at him. That would be all kinds of embarrassing. He didn't seem to be bothered by the fact he was practically naked in front of me, and I didn't know why. The only thing I could come up with was that maybe he was used to being in his wolf form a lot more than I was, which in turn left him naked when he phased back into his human form. I had yet to do that in front of anyone, thankfully, but I knew it couldn't be avoided forever. When I was sure it was safe to get up, I looked back at a fully dressed Kieran. He looked hot. I couldn't deny that. It would be a lie to say otherwise. "Dinner is almost ready. The pack members are waiting for us downstairs," he said. "Okay, I'll just get cleaned up and meet you down there," I said. He looked at me expectantly. "We'll go together." Oh, right. Mates do everything together, I remembered. I forget sometimes. I'm not used to that. Maybe it will become more natural to me when we're mated. I didn't argue with him because I knew he was right, and I left to the bathroom to get ready. The dinner, overall, went well. I was starting to feel more at home here the more time I spent with his pack. Wyatt and Leland took turns poking fun at me throughout the meal. Thankfully, Lara took up for me. Dorian, I was still trying to adjust to me, so he didn't say much. He was Kieran's third in command. He wasn't nearly as laid back as some of the other wolves in the pack. He was certainly polite, but not very sociable. He was more reserved. When Kieran walked me to our room after the night was over, it felt like a date in a weird way. Everything was calm and peaceful. We walked in a comfortable silence most of the way, holding hands. I was most surprised by how empty I felt once he let my hand go once we were inside the bedroom. I was starting to wonder if maybe there was something wrong with me. I shouldn't be having these feelings towards someone so quickly. There has to be a logical explanation for it. Just when I decided to ask him about it, I saw that I was too late. He was already sleeping soundly in his sofa bed. He looked so innocent and cute, I just didn't have the heart to wake him up. I would be sure to ask him about it tomorrow. That thought reminded me about last night as well. He never told me about his parents. I guess now there was really no use since I already knew about them, but something in me wanted him to tell me for himself. I let out a yawn and buried my face into the warm covers on the bed, sleep slowly making its way to me. My mind ran over the events of today, remembering every detail about it. My mind drifted from Kieran to the acquaintances I had made today, and finally to the story Dr. Heath told me and how worrisome I had become about Axel, the rogue leader, and if he decided on coming back. I shivered again. By the time my thoughts started to circle back around again, I was to overcome by sleep that staying awake was no longer an option, and I willingly sunk into a heavy slumber. I didn't sleep well. The memories I had tried to suppress deep in my subconscious resurfaced overnight. and the dull wounds left from Daniel's wake felt entirely too fresh for me. Instead of it being more than a week ago since I was broken, it felt just like yesterday. I screamed and clutched my chest. My soul was being torn apart all over again as the vivid dream played through my mind like a movie on repeat. Somewhere in my mind, I think I knew it was merely a dream, but I could not find my way back to reality. I was lost in my own mind with no one to bring me out of my suffering. "He rejects us," my wolf whispered. "He chose another mate." My wolf whimpered at the new realization, and I wished for anything that I could in some way console her, but I was just as broken as her. I felt weak and sick. I had to grab onto the counter just to keep my balance. Daniel became concerned but didn't move to help me. "She's pregnant. Jasmine is having our pups," he said. No, the pain inside me was more excruciating than I could convey. It felt as if something inside me had been ripped out. Like my soul, I felt empty now. My body was nothing but a wasteland. Nothing of importance lied within me anymore. Without Daniel, I was nothing but empty and broken. I fell to the ground on my hands and knees and cried out in pain. I rocked back and forth, holding my arms tightly around myself as if it would prevent me from completely falling apart. However, it did nothing to hold me together. I was too far gone to be saved. "Then I guess there is nothing left to do, but make it official, is there?" The voice was right next to me. It was him, Kieran. "Do it," he ordered. "The faster you do this, the quicker she will heal. Put an end to her suffering," he ordered. I didn't look up, but I took it by my mate's silence he was taking Kieran's words into consideration. He was thinking, "I'm so sorry, Claire." It was Daniel who spoke, and then he continued, "I, Daniel Montgomery, Alpha of the Night Shadow Pack, hereby reject you, Claire Warren, as my mate and Luna of this pack. Your lies are no longer to this pack, therefore you may leave upon your choosing. The decision is yours." All the air left my lungs while I tried to gasp for air, but it didn't work. I could no longer breathe. My head became dizzy. He released me from my pack and our bond. I truly had nothing now. I was alone, completely and 100%. I was disoriented and could not focus on anything anymore. Not voices, not people, not touch or anything. My senses were useless. With a loud cry, my wolf let out within me. She disappeared into nothingness. I could not feel her anymore, nor could I myself. I was gone, just like her. Someone's arms quickly wrapped around my shoulder and held me to them while I sobbed, letting my tears hit the floor until there was nothing left. And then I disappeared into a dark abyss. "Claire." No, he left me. He left me again. I grabbed at my chest. I can't. It hurts too much, Claire. Someone was shaking me vigorously. "Leave me alone. You left me. You broke me. Just go." "Claire, you have to wake up. It's just a dream." I felt disoriented. Who was talking? Where was that voice coming from? I'm lost in the dark. Another wave of pain hit me in the chest and I screamed out. I clutched my chest even tighter, willing it to stop, but it never did. "You're okay, I promise. Just open your eyes for me. You have to trust me." Trust me. Those words seemed so familiar and comforting. They were just enough to bring me temporarily out of my despair. I felt a cool hand on my face, breaking through my subconscious. It was gently tapping my cheek. I forced my eyes open, letting the light seep in. I was in the familiar, well-lit room with a very worried-looking Kieran hovering over top of me. It was then that I noticed I was also in his arms. He was holding me. I was drenched in sweat. My clothes were wet, but he didn't seem to mind it. "What?" I started, but my throat was too dry to get out anything more. "You're burning up," he said, feeling of my forehead, watching me very carefully. "We should get you to see the doctor." "No," I protested through a very strained voice. My throat was still dry and Kieran noticed that, especially when I placed my hand on it and winced. It felt like I had swallowed a box of lit matches and it burnt the inside of my throat. I didn't want anyone to see me like this. I was so weak and frail. I was not fit to be a Luna right now, and I didn't want my pack seeing me this way. It would draw too much attention to me. Attention I didn't want. "Don't argue with me on this. You need to be seen." "They'll see me," I said weakly. He sighed and laid me down on the bed and left the room. I panicked. Where did he go? Why did he leave me? I was starting to sob again when he showed back up with a small yellow cup in his hand. I can't believe how insecure this rejection had made me. It didn't feel good enough for anyone. Why would anyone want to even stay with me, especially Kieran? He seemed to be faring much better than I was. Of course, he had longer to cope with his rejection. He slipped his hand under my head and gently raised me up. He brought the cup to my lips, letting the cool liquid flow easily down my throat. It soothed the dry, burning feeling inside. By the time I had finished the contents of the cup, I felt better. The pain was now just a dull ache in my chest, disappearing quickly. Kieran took the cup away from my lips, and I forced myself up in the bed. He didn't remove his arm from around me, even though I was in the setting position now. He still looked apprehensive to release me. "I'm okay," I said, noting how much better my throat felt this time when I spoke. "You're not," he said. "It's the dreams. They don't just go away. This is far from over. I warned you about this, remember?" He was staring at me intently as if trying to stress exactly how important that fact was for me. "Yes," I replied. "I remember." He stood up, releasing me from his hold. Again, I felt cold in his absence. "I'm going to get the pack doctor. He'll give you something for your fever. No one has to see you if you don't want them to." I nodded. I didn't want them to. However, if he would come here, then I would see him just to make Kieran happy. I knew that I would be fine, but Kieran didn't seem to feel the same way. In the end, I knew he would do what he wanted to, so arguing with him on it would get me nowhere. "Okay, I'll be back soon." He left the room, and almost as soon as he did, my pain started inching back up inside me. It wasn't as painful as the dream, but it still hurt me. I clenched my chest again and winced. As Kieran promised, he was back only minutes later. Guilt washed over me when I saw Heath enter the room in his sleep robe. Had Kieran got him out of bed? I looked over at the clock and felt even worse. Of course he did. It was 4 a.m. I don't think even the good doctor was up at these hours. He smiled to me kindly when saw me sitting on the bed and made his way over to me. He took a seat in the empty spot in front of me, placing his black bag beside him. "It's nice to see you again, Claire. I hate it's under these circumstances, though." Kieran raised an eyebrow to us, but didn't question our friendship. Instead, he remained silent and kept his eyes on Heath, watching everything he did. Heath placed a thermometer under my tongue and began checking me over as he waited for it to beep. He checked my pulse and then took a look at the veins in my arm, trying to determine something, then checked my eyes and ears. After he pulled the thermometer out, he asked me to open my mouth and check my throat. Soon he came to a conclusion. "Well, she's not sick," he said, placing his things back inside the bag he brought. "She's a bit dehydrated, though." After his stuff was packed away, he turned back to Kieran and me with a bemused expression. "As for the fever," he began, "I'm not too sure about. I don't know what could be causing it. Maybe if you tell me what happened before I got here, that will help me in figuring out what's wrong." My eyes shifted to Kieran, who was standing above me with a grave expression on his face. He only looked at me briefly before making eye contact with Heath. "It's the dreams," he answered him. Recognition passed over him. Heath looked back at me with sympathy. "So that's it," he mumbled. "Can you give her something for it?" Kieran asked, though he already told me before there was only one thing that could help me. The doctor looked despondent and sighed. "I'm afraid not. I can prescribe some strong sleeping pills, but what with our bodies running warmer than normal, it would burn off before the night was over." "Then what do you suggest?" I asked, hoping he'd have another solution. "Well, it's not going to completely cure you of your dreams, but it will keep the pain out of them. They won't be able to get to you anymore." "The claim," I said, already knowing what he would say. He nodded. "Yes, the claim." "You helped Kieran with this, didn't you?" I asked him. He shot me another sympathetic look before standing from the bed and answering me. "Yes, and one other couple. Your situation is very rare. There are very few people who take on other mates. Unfortunately, it happens, though. It's more common in wolves that have lost their mate to some unfortunate circumstance, like a war or illness. That is, if they survive the loss." "You know someone else who has gone through it, though," I stated. "Yes, there is a couple in the pack who lost their mates and the dreams were the same. The only difference is they would feel the pain of their mate's death all over again, instead of a rejection." I sat silently. I suppose that would be much worse than a rejection. Though a rejection is much like death, you still grieve the same way. You grieve for the loss of your mate. However, I wasn't mated to Daniel. That would have destroyed me completely. I doubt I could have survived it. They were able to overcome it, though, and they are happy again? I asked. They are, he confirmed. They have been mated for the past 10 years. Seeing them, you wouldn't know they weren't true mates. The bond is strong between them, but it's even stronger in alphas, he said, looking between us. He already saw the question in my eyes and continued to explain. An alpha is a leader. The decisions they make are final and respected. When an alpha marks a she-wolf, it is not only acknowledged by the pack, but by your souls as well. Your souls will be the first to accept it, even before your wolves. Though they will come around and respect your decision as well. They can't fight the bond. Eventually they will want and need to mate, which will become overpowering, and you will complete the mating process soon after. Another question came to mind. How did my mate not suffer as much as I did after the rejection? I asked. Wouldn't the pain be the same for him? Heath shook his head. Normally that would be so, but from what I have gathered from Alpha Kieran, the circumstance is different. Most wolves will always wait on their mate. They do not form relationships with other wolves. Of course, there are some impatient ones who can't wait that long. Daniel, I thought to myself, there is something called soul intertwining. It comes when two wolves who aren't mates cohabit and their wolves grow used to each other and their souls start bonding. It doesn't serve the same purpose as marking another wolf. However, it's enough to confuse your wolf and soul. Wolves who aren't mates are not meant to live together as a couple, so this causes problems when one of them finds their mate. Everything was starting to come together and make sense now. That's why Daniel found it so easy to reject me. His soul was intertwined with Jasmine's. That's why he was confused and didn't know what to do when he found me. In a way, I guess you could say his wolf was brainwashed, he finished. He must have done a lot of research on mates to know so much about this. Maybe after he helped that other couple, he felt the need to learn more, in case any more of these situations arise, like ours. Kieran remained silent and unsurprised. I guess the good doctor had already shared this information with him prior to tonight. When Heath left, Kieran and I sat in a comfortable silence on the bed. Neither of us really knew what to say that hadn't already been said. After forcing me to drink 2 more cups of water, he finally let me lay back down to sleep. The clock showed 5:30 a.m., and I was growing tired again. Although I was sleepy, I was too scared to go to sleep, afraid the dream might make an appearance again. I wasn't ready for that again so soon. It was nearly 6 a.m. when Kieran turned the lamp off by the bed, letting the natural light from daybreak seep in between the curtains, and started back to his bed. I quickly caught his hand before he was out of reach, bringing him to a halt beside me. He seemed surprised by my gesture. "Can you just stay here with me until I fall asleep?" I asked him. "Maybe you can keep the dreams away." I needed him, but I didn't like how weak I sounded asking him to stay. I hated to appear weak. I hated to rely on anyone. I was independent. That's how I had always been. It was what separated me from my pack. No one was like me in that way. However, right here and right now, I couldn't have been more vulnerable since the day I was rejected. The surprise on his face never wore off, but nodded his head. "I'll stay." I couldn't have been more relieved when he agreed. He rounded the other side of the bed and got in next to me. His arm gently draped over my side as we faced each other. Sleep finally made its way over me again before the morning finally settled in. Kieran didn't take his eyes off of me the entire time I was awake. Through his eyes, I could see some of the pain and hurt he had been hiding from me all this time. The eyes are the windows to the soul, after all. Just before I drifted off into a peaceful, dreamless state of sleep, I felt Kieran's cool fingertips brushing a strand of hair from my face and tucked it behind my ear carefully. The sound of his steady breathing put me completely at ease. It was after 10 o'clock before I woke up again. Unlike yesterday morning, when I woke up alone, I found myself tangled up in Kieran's muscular arms. They definitely weighed as much as they looked. He was putting so much pressure on my stomach, causing my bladder to nearly burst. I struggled under his weight. When I finally managed to unwrap his arms from me, it caused him to stir and eventually wake. He groggily rubbed his eyes and ran hand through his tousled hair before giving me a sheepish grin. I smiled at how innocent and cute he looked first waking up in the morning. Right now, he was the spitting image of a little boy who stayed up way past his bedtime and had to get up early. I giggled at him, unable to help it, and caused him to frown. "What?" he asked. "Nothing," I lied, worried he might be upset if I told him. His frown deepened at my words. "Tell me," he ordered. It wasn't in his alpha tone, but I could see he was serious and didn't plan on letting it go. "Has anyone told you how cute you are when you sleep?" I giggled again. Just as I suspected, he did not seem pleased by that. He crossed his arms over his chest, looking upset. "Alphas are not cute," he stated. "We're strong and intimidating." "Well, I guess you're an exception to the rule," I smiled. He grumbled a few words under his breath that even I, a wolf, couldn't make out, and stood up from the bed. He was in a short-sleeved shirt and a pair of basketball shorts, and even in that, he still looked very good. I blushed at my own thought. Thankfully, Kieran had noticed me do that. He was already across the room, pulling some clothes out of the closet. I quickly took my leave to use the restroom before he took it over to go shower. I did my morning routine, and after I had done everything I needed to, I let him have the bathroom. We didn't spend much time talking, since as soon as he was out of the shower, I took mine. I took my time getting ready for the day. Kieran had already left out to do who knows what, and I was left alone in the room. I checked my phone again to see if Jennifer had called me back yet, but disappointment quickly washed over me when I saw that she hadn't. Maybe she had decided to disown me since I left the pack. It might have been one of Daniel's rules. Though, that was probably just me overthinking it a little. I don't believe he would go that far, even for him. Minutes seemed like hours due to my boredom. I hadn't really made any friends here yet except Keely and Lana, so I didn't know what to do with my day. With them both school, Lana in college and Keely in high school, I didn't have anyone to hang out with. I felt kind of lonely. On that thought, I decided to roam the territory to try to make some more friends and get to know my pack a little better. I spent the earlier part of the afternoon talking with the pack members. I could happily say that I had made more friendships. Well, friends might be a bit presumptuous, more like potential friends. Around the latter part of the evening, I found myself by the lake Kieran had showed me yesterday. It was just as beautiful as it was then. I decided to dip my feet in the cool water to relax me. I was feeling much better than I was this morning, and I didn't feel like I had a fever anymore, so that was good. Right now, I mostly felt at ease. I got a little depressed when I saw a few passing wolves running through the woods, wishing that was me. With my wolf still being MIA, shifting wasn't an option for me. Even though I rarely let her out to run, I started to realize you never know how much you miss something until it's gone. That being my wolf. I still held on to the hope that when Kieran and I mate, she'll come back to me. I really needed her. After a few minutes of enjoying the water, my eyes found the path that Kieran and I had traveled some of the way yesterday when showing me the borders. But we didn't get to finish the hike. Me, being the curious person I am, decided to get up and follow it to see where it came out this time. It wasn't like I had a lot to anyway. With Wyatt still running the pack, it wasn't like I was needed very much yet. So why not enjoy the time I have while I have it? With my shoes in hand, I took off on an exploration. The dirt and grass under my feet felt good. I felt close to nature. My wolf would have loved it. If I would let her, she would spend hours getting lost in the woods just for enjoyment of it. I'll have to remember to let her do that sometime, providing I get the chance. It was starting to get dark. The sky was twilight, so my human eyes could still see the forest in front of me. At some point, I had wandered off the trail. I'm not really sure when, but now I was just wandering around aimlessly through the thick greenery and trees of the woods. I was lost. I knew that much, but I wasn't scared. I had been lost in the woods dozens of times as a kid, so this was something I was used to. I always managed to find my way out somehow, though. I'll just have to do that again. It shouldn't be too hard. I continued to hike around a little longer, searching for the path that would lead me back to the house, when I heard a shuffling noise nearby. I took a sniff of the air to see if I could get a whiff of what it was, but couldn't pick up anything other than the scent of the forest. I didn't get very far when I heard it again, though this time something had changed. It was louder, and I was picking up on an animal smell, a wolf. Maybe Kieran had sent one of his pack members out to look for me since I hadn't made it back yet. I was internally cursing myself for not brining my cell phone now. If he called me and I didn't answer, he would be worried and come looking for me. A low growl sounded throughout the woods and bounced off the trees. The wolf was right behind me. I could smell it easily. It was not a smell I recognized, though, and that worried me. Another growl came from the wolf, only this one was a little louder. It was clear this wolf was neither friendly nor part of my new pack. I didn't know what my next move should be. Running was not an option, since that is one of the stupidest things someone could do in this situation. It only sent them on a chase and angered them. Most didn't survive when they were eventually caught. "Who are you and what are you doing on my land?" A deep male voice asked with much authority. I knew by the way he spoke he was an alpha. I slowly turned around to face him, trying to hide my fear, and it was my fear that kept me from speaking. His eyes studied me closely, and when I didn't answer, he growled. I flinched. It was hard to concentrate with the naked male wolf in front of me. I tried to stay focused on his eyes. I'm sure he could see how embarrassing this was for me. I'm Claire. I'm from the Perilous Pack. I came onto your land by accident. I got lost, I explained when I found my voice. He was still scrutinizing me, but his features relaxed slightly. He didn't seem as intimidating now. I know Kieran, and I am familiar with the Perilous Pack, though I don't recall seeing you before, he stated, crossing his arms over his chest. I'm new, I answered. I just joined a couple of days ago. He took a whiff of the air and nodded. You do have their scent. It's still off, though. Who was your previous pack? Night Shadow. He seemed surprised. Daniel Montgomery's pack? I nodded in confirmation. You're the wolf everyone is talking about? I furrowed my eyebrows up at him. I didn't mask my confusion. People are talking about me? Word spread like wildfire when people found out what happened between you and your mate. No one has ever heard of an alpha doing what he did. It's caused a bit of friction between his pack and their allies. They have been marked as a weak pack and have lost a lot of respect. A pack is only as strong as its alpha. I was surprised. How had so many people heard about that so quickly? I was only rejected a week and a half ago, and I had been in Kieran's pack a fourth of that time. How fast that Daniel had caused so much trouble for himself in that amount of time was unfathomable. Come on, I'll see you back to your land, he offered kindly. I could see it in his eyes that they held a certain amount of sympathy over what happened. Wait, does anyone know the rest of the story? No one knows where you are, if that's what you mean. It makes sense that you would come here, though. I felt confused by that. It does? Yeah, the two rejected mates banding together for the greater good, the hurt, helping the hurt. Kieran had the right idea, bring you to his side. I nodded, though I was surprised by having his support. Did others support us as well? When we got to our pack's borders, there were 5 wolves waiting there for me there. Kieran was not among them. There were a few lights on posts scattered around close by that helped my human eyes see at night, and that I was thankful for. I hadn't been able to hold on to all of my superhuman senses with the loss of my wolf, my night vision being one of them. It was considerably weakened. The alpha who I had met in the woods was in his wolf form a few feet in front of me. It seemed the pack members knew him as they bowed their heads in acknowledgement. Leland was the first to speak. Sawyer, he said politely, watching the wolf. His eyes then moved to mine. He looked worried and a little upset. It mirrored the rest of the wolves' faces. This was nothing like the laid-back, teasing Leland from last night. He was so serious and concerned now. I felt bad I had caused all of this. Guilt was eating away at me. They probably would have been looking for me all night if I hadn't showed back up. There seemed to be some unspoken words between him and Leland, then Sawyer was gone. Kieran has been looking everywhere for you. He didn't know what happened to you. He's really upset, Leland spoke. I imagined he would be. I needed to find him and explain what happened. I am to see you back to the pack house. Dorian, the third in command, said tersely. He was straightforward and very reserved. In the 2 days that I had been here, I hadn't seen him crack a smile once. I mean, Wyatt was beta and he wasn't even this uptight. I walked beside Dorian and Leland followed along to the pack house. Neither of them saying anything to me or each other. The atmosphere was kind of tense. I honestly didn't think I'd cause this much trouble. I felt like I was on my way to the principal's office to be punished for something I didn't know was wrong. This feeling was foreign to me. No one, other than my parents, really cared or paid attention to what I did in my pack, not even Alpha Daniel before he knew we were mates. Though things were kind of lax in my pack, which was the difference. I hope Kieran isn't too upset that I trespassed onto other Alpha's land.